NFL. And I'm joined today by the best co-host in the game. You've heard him on the Saturday morning spread a couple times this week. It is Mark Henry Jr. Give him a follow on Twitter at Mark Henry Jr. NFL. Mark, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, but I will refrain from making too many comments because Shane, I wanted this to be a top 20 defensive backs episode. Shane had to cap it at 10, so we got a lot to get to.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever done bigger than a top 10. Did we do a top 12 one week? One time?
One crazy edge year. I think there was a crazy edge year that we might have ranked 12 guys. Maybe O-line. I can't remember which one it was.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we might have done. I feel like I might remember a top 12 offensive line. You are not getting that today. You are getting a top 10 defensive backs. I will say, however, it is a deep defensive back year. Every guy that I'm going to talk about today, I have at least a first or second round grade on. So I'm not even going to dip into the guys I gave third round grades. So, there's a lot of guys out here. It's a good year to need a defensive back. And honestly, I feel like it's been a good year to need defensive backs for a few years because it just seems like there's always guys. We're going to dive in. We're going to talk about some of these guys. Some clear safeties that are high on the board. Some guys that could maybe play safety, could maybe play in the slot, and we'll kind of give you where we think they fit in. And if there's guys the Eagles might be interested in. Obviously, they signed Tariq Woolen. So it's a one-year deal. Cornerback could still be on the table. They desperately need safety help, and so we'll talk about it as we go through this show. But let's dive in here because this could be a little bit of a longer show, and let's talk about our number one guy. So we both have the same number one on the board. It is safety Caleb Downs out of Ohio State. So Caleb Downs was a five-star recruit. He's the brother of NFL wide receiver Josh Downs. His father played running back in the NFL. His uncle was a two-time Pro Bowler at cornerback in the NFL. And so this is a guy the NFL bloodlines run deep for. In 2023, he became the first true freshman in Alabama history to lead the team in tackles with 107. Now, you might ask, why did you say he's from Ohio State? Because, as is often the case with guys in the draft these days, he transferred. I'll give him a good. He had a good reason. He transferred in 2023 after Saban retired, and then he was a back-to-back All-American at Ohio State. So we talked jokingly about loyalty last week. Loyalty to a university. Hey, Saban retires, you get a free pass from me. Caleb Downs is 5'11", which is 28th percentile for safeties, 206 pounds, which is 48th percentile. Did not do athletic testing at the combine. He is 21, just a little over 21 years old on draft night. In 2025, he had a 10.2% missed tackle rate on 68 total tackles. He had 29 defensive stops, 5 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 2 interceptions, 2 passes defensed. He played in his career 799 snaps as a post safety, 454 snaps in the slot, and 682 snaps in the box. When you talk about Caleb Downs' strengths, there's a lot of them. He's a blue chip player for me in this draft, and I believe he's only the second blue chip. Yeah, he's only the second blue chip that I've awarded so far. He reads out route concepts so well, reads the QB's eyes. He breaks on routes and on throws with anticipation. He's a glue guy in the secondary, great communicator, gets the defense lined up. He passes off routes really well. He has a very versatile skill set. I think he's a guy that you can use to solve a lot of problems for you defensively. He is sticky in man coverage. He understands spacing and zone coverage. He's got good athleticism and agility. He can man match out of zone and transition really well and just run with a guy downfield. He's a good form tackler. Most of the time, he'll stay low and wrap his guys up. Gave up 0 touchdowns in the last 2 years at Ohio State. He's even got experience as a punt returner. Although if you're drafting this guy as high as I think he could go, you're probably not putting him out there to return punts. However, he sometimes goes for big hits and he will whiff, or he'll dive at ankles instead of wrapping up. So there's streaks of that. Overall, I think he's a good tackler, though. He's a bit of a gambler in the run game, and it can pay off with some big plays, but it can also lead to some big misses. I do think you're going to see him potentially struggle a little bit with bigger tight ends and man coverage because he is only 5'11". He can get sealed out of run plays at times by tight ends moving upfield, and he doesn't have a ton of experience playing single high. But the biggest thing, and I've got him tagged with a medical red flag, was that he was dealing with a torn meniscus. There's things that have come out that he potentially has a degenerative knee issue. And so now he never missed a game in college. And so who knows how accurate that is. Maybe this is the sort of thing where the career won't be long. It'll be great while it's there. Maybe it's a big nothing. But certainly we don't have the information to that. And I don't trust much that comes out in the month prior to the draft. It can be smoke screens from teams. So who knows? But like I said, he's a blue chip guy for me with that medical red flag. I think he's a day one starter as a versatile safety who has a really high ceiling. I think he's got a really high floor. The only major question for me is the medicals.
Yeah, this is a funny one. I've talked in here about how I have a buddy who is a beat reporter for another team who I get some weird back channel sources from draft time more than any. And I had that one we talked about Cassius Howe that I didn't want to fully get into. The Caleb Downs knee one was something I actually heard a couple days before it came out. And that's one of the weirder injury reports I've ever seen because you did not see Schefter or Ian touch it for days, or Schultz even. Like, you did not see the guys who are the full-on newsbreakers in the sport touch it. Now, Downs has a big agency that he's connected to. You could say that they were working overtime to get that to not get out and leak, and it ended up leaking. And I forget who it was, but the Twitter guy who reported it out in an article had like 10,000 followers at the time he put it out, and he exploded after that, I think. But it really interesting. Just like, and I think it's been confirmed enough by enough teams that there is something to it. I don't think it's just nothing. Now it just comes down to what you take from that. Like, if Caleb Downs drops to the second round now, am I going to be shocked? I guess not. Like, we watched it happen with Will Johnson pretty similarly last year. And I have him as my second best player in the draft. I think he's a blue chip guy. I think he's one of the best safety prospects I've ever evaluated. And it's just, this is where the draft stuff is a little not so fun when we're talking about like how much do we value the injury news that we have when me and Shane, I think, generally like to keep it on the field, and when it's off the field, it's usually intangible stuff, and that's usually either whatever. But this is a weird, nebulous conversation that, like, should I be downgrading Downs in my overall ranks now? I'm not going to, but with kind of the asterisk that I'm aware that it could happen.
Yeah, I think we've always said we just don't have the information that NFL teams have, and so we try to mention those things so people are aware, like, hey, if this guy free falls, this is why it's going to happen. But we just don't have the info to be able to really evaluate that stuff. So we mentioned the degenerative knee. What are the odds that the Ravens draft him in the first round and then back out of the pick? Pull a Max Crosby. They come back the next day. They're like, you know what? We decided not to. We're undrafting him. Let's redo the first round.
In the legal draft tampering period.
Yeah.
We're rewinding it. Yeah. It'll be really interesting. I mean, I think he and Love are the two most interesting players in the draft, and ESPN's trying to cook up a Dan Orlovsky, Ty Simpson controversy the last couple days because they don't think the draft's interesting. They should be talking about Caleb Downs. They should be talking about Jeremiah Love, because despite the fact that two positions that are two of the lowest paid positions in the sport, and running back and safety, are arguably the two best players in the draft. And when you said this is only your second blue chip guy, the other one was Jeremiah, right?
Well, I haven't watched running back yet. Arvell Reese was my other one.
You're right. I think I prepared for running back thinking we were doing it, and then we ended up doing a different one.
Yeah.
So in my head, we already did running back. But
running back should be next week, and there's a 99% chance that'll probably be my third and likely final blue chip guy for this draft class.
Yeah, I think I'm only giving blue chip to Love and Downs.
Okay.
And yeah, it's an interesting situation to watch with both of those guys. With the Love situation, running back, obviously, that conversation is interesting, I think. And then Downs, not only do you have the positional value, now you have the injury thing in here. That's interesting. You got a ton of receivers. There's a lot the ESPN should be grabbing onto instead of what they've been doing the last couple of days. But that's
actually
a really different conversation.
I misspoke. Reese was a red chip guy for me, so Downs is currently my only one. Love will probably be my second and final.
Yeah, Reese was a red chip guy for me. He's probably my top red chip guy. We're about to discuss another red chip guy for me.
Yeah, I like the Dan Orlovsky. I texted 14 to 16 GMs because he can't remember how many, and said Ty Simpson's the best quarterback in the class. And only 2 of them disagreed with him. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure that half of the GMs in the league are sharing proprietary draft information with a media personality. I'm sure that's what's happening, ESPN.
Orlovsky's a joke.
All right, let's keep rolling here. Let's go to number 2. We have the same number 2 as well. It is cornerback Mansour Delane out of LSU via Virginia Tech. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school who played 3 seasons at Virginia Tech before he transferred to LSU for his final season. In 2025 at LSU, he allowed only 147 yards in coverage and was named a first-team All-American. He is 6 foot tall, which is 61st percentile, 187 pounds, which is 27th percentile, and about 22 and a quarter years old. He had 45 tackles in 2022 with a 10.6% missed tackle rate, 10 defensive stops, and over the course of his career, he's played 1,937 snaps at outside cornerback, 114 snaps in the slot, and 244 in the box. He's an impactful defender who has a knack for making plays on the ball. He had 11 passes defensed last season, and that's not a one-off. He had 7 the year before. He had 8 in 2022. Now, he did only have 1 in 2023. He's got 6 interceptions, so 6 interceptions and 18 passes defensed over the last 2 seasons. So good ball production. And you want that, right? As good as offenses are, when you have a guy that can swing possessions like that, that's really valuable. But he's not just a big play guy. He's a versatile player. He can mirror wide receivers from press coverage really well. He can play in off coverage. He played a pretty even mix of man and zone coverage in 2025. So whatever scheme you want to play, you're a press man team, you're an off man team, you're a cover 3 team, you're a quarters team. He fits. He can do all of those things. Anticipates routes really well, frequently jumps them to make plays on the ball like we talked about. I think he does a really good job when he can't get to the ball of playing through a receiver's arms at the catch point to make every catch difficult and contested. Now, he's got a little bit of a slim frame at 187 pounds. It would be helpful if he added a little mass. As you're going to say with almost every cornerback, it's become a running joke on this show, but he's too grabby downfield. He's going to draw flags at the next level if he doesn't clean that up. He can be aggressive in coverage, which makes him susceptible to double moves, especially when he's in off coverage. He likes to click and close downhill. His tackling technique could use some work in the open field. And I'm not sure he has elite long speed. I don't think it's bad, but I don't think he's got elite long speed. But I gave him a first-round grade. I think he's going to go high in this draft, and I think he's going to fit great in whatever scheme you want to run with him.
Yeah, he's actually my only first-round grade corner in this draft class. So I do have a couple more first-round grade guys, but they won't be corners. So part of me has pushed Delane up maybe even a little further than I should have him overall. I think he's kind of right a tier of offensive linemen that I have right behind him when I'm stacking up my overall board. And part of me, because of I think O line in this draft is a day one position. I think you want to go get your O lineman on day one, with kind of the cluster that you have on day one. With the cluster that you have on day two, I'm starting to think maybe I have Delane too high above those O linemen. But the other argument for that is if you want to lock in like a sure thing corner, in my opinion, I think the guy is Delane. And if you're taking a corner in the first round, I think it's Delane. If you're making other picks in the first round at corner, I think you're taking risks, and we'll get to why when we get to those guys. But Delane, one of the safer prospects in this draft, in my opinion. I think we know he's going to be a good corner. So a lot of other guys in this draft, I think, have a lot more questions, a lot more concerns. Will they be, will they have to shift inside? Will they be outside? A lot more kind of tweener stuff. With Delane, I think we know what he is a little bit more.
Yeah. All right. So unanimous number 1 and 2. Then we start to diverge a little bit. And so, Mark, the number 3 guy on your board is safety Emmanuel McNeil Warren. Excuse me. He is number 6 on my board. So lead us off with EMW. Is that the official nickname? Can we call him that?
I have been calling him that. I haven't seen it a lot. So I need people to start doing the EMW thing. I like it. I think it works.
A 4-syllable first name with a hyphenated last name is a mouthful. I mean, it takes me 8 syllables to say your name. We need a nickname.
I agree. I'm totally on board with EMW.
What if we just call him the Mud Hen?
I had a Mudhen joke ready to go. You ruined it. I have it literally written in my notes, unbelievably. But
that's like the only piece of podcast lore that we have.
No, we have more than that. That is number 1, though. 8.98 relative athletic score. This is a guy I'm falling in love with. And this is a funny one. He's between the 60th and 80th percentile in explosion and speed drills, but he's 99.3 percentile of height. So that's kind of carrying the RAS score there a little bit. When you pull up his RAS chart, it's like a lot of yellow for an 8.98 RAS score. But he's 6'3.5", and he's 201 with long, freakish arms. He's a spindly freak for the position, to be honest, in terms of the dimensions that he has. 3-year starter for Toledo. He amassed 214 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 13 passes defense, 5 picks, and an absurd 9 forced fumbles in 4 seasons there. He has an elite peanut punch. Great mover with agility, able to flip the hips, takes great angles, and has incredible instincts to playing the ball. Great play anticipation, great change of direction. He's aggressive and instinctive in run support, shooting through the gaps. He's definitely always looking to make a hit and taking a beeline to get to that hit. Now, that aggressiveness can be a negative at times. He missed 10 tackles in 2025. There's definitely times he takes a beeline and ends up in the wrong gap. The one thing that's a little weird is that he tested, pretty above average in terms of the RAS chart stuff, but he looks like an insane freak athlete on film when you turn on the film. And then you have to kind of, beyond the insane instincts that I discussed, part of me is worried that freakishness is being enhanced by him playing in the MAC, obviously, and the testing proves that, I think, a little bit. But I've also decided, even if that's the case, and even if he's just an above average athlete at safety, I think he'll still be a stud due to his insane playmaking ability, football IQ, instincts, aggressiveness, combined with his insane length, which is obviously still a huge plus. I've decided I don't care that much. If the athleticism pops on film, it's one thing, but obviously the MAC kind of takes that away. But I'm not going to take away all the other stuff that I do absolutely buy in on with him. And he reminds me so much of Xavier Watts, and even more so Kirby Joseph. I forgot to send it to myself to get it ready, but there's a Kirby Joseph RAS chart. They're pretty similar size, pretty similar college production. Kirby Joseph had a lot of ball production at Illinois. You see a lot of ball production here. Or actually, I'm sorry, wrong guy. I was comparing Kirby Joseph here. But the freak athleticism, it's hard not to look at Kyle Hamilton with the freak length and freak height. He doesn't have the same freak athleticism that Kyle Hamilton does. He has some of the same instinctual stuff. And again, Notre Dame versus Toledo, it's a different. They're definitely playing against different classes, but he looks like him on college film. Without factoring for kind of the trade off there. I messed up with I scrolled down to get another piece of information and pulled up someone else's comp for that, but there we go.
Yeah. So he played over the course of his career 909 snaps in the box, 574 at safety, and 189 in the slot. The peanut punch obviously stands out dramatically. 3 forced fumbles in 2025, 9 over his career, like you said. I do think that his aggressiveness probably crosses the line into recklessness. So he misses a good number of tackles and will overrun plays, which I'd rather have a guy that's aggressive and scale that back a little bit and coach a little more discipline than have a guy that's conservative. So I can work with that. I have a little more questions about his athleticism. I don't think he's a bad athlete. I think he's a solid athlete, but this isn't like a raw player from a non-Power 5 school. This is a cerebral player from a non-Power 5 school. Like, his superpower is his instinctualness, his awareness. And I'm a little afraid that he could fall behind at the next level when he's not seeing things so much faster than everybody else. And I think there's always going to be a bit of a concern with guys that are not Power 5 like that. And so maybe that's not fair, but that is something that's in the, if his film looked the same at a Power 5 school as it does from Toledo, I'd be higher. And I still like him. I gave a top of the second round grade, to the Mud Hen here. I think he's going to thrive playing close to the line of scrimmage. If you need a box safety guy, if you're running a single high scheme, or even if you want to run a split field scheme and let him come off the roof and play downhill, I think there's a really good chance he's going to be a really good player for somebody for a lot of years.
Yeah, and I think just because my scouting reports kind of go hand in hand here, I'll just move on right next to the next safety that I have, who's at number 4 with Dylan Tieneman, who's got a 9.71 relative athletic score, but it's kind of the exact opposite of Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. He's EMW's freakish size skews the RAS chart to ignore above average athleticism, whereas Thieneman overcomes mid measurements with excellent athletics testing. 98.3 percentile vertical, 89 percentile broad, ran a 4.35 which is 99.8 percentile among safeties in the 40-yard dash, elite 10 and 20-yard splits. He was a 3-year starter who played for 2 years at Purdue before transferring to Oregon in 2025. Last year, he had 96 tackles, including 3.5 for loss, 1 sack, 2 picks, 5 passes defense. Great at reading the quarterback, great instincts against the run and pass. Similarly to EMW, he kind of jukes and shifts his way around blocks and instead of taking them on to get to the ball carrier. Identifies and blows up screens really well. 8 career interceptions, so definitely has the ball skills you look for. I think he's a great zone coverage prospect, but there's definitely times he gives up big separation in man that he can't make up for by trying to read the quarterback, I think. Average change of direction on film, which kind of hurts his man coverage. A more fundamental tackler than EMW, but not quite the big hit maker. I saw that they were kind of back-to-back in your rankings as well, I think. Which one did you have above?
Tieneman is number 5 on my board. McNeil-Warren is number 6 on my board. So they're back-to-back. I did give so I'm into the first round grade on Tieneman and top of the second on McNeil-Warren. So they're pretty close for me. I had him a little bit higher, and I think the athleticism is part of the thing. Like, he has elite athleticism and speed, explosive mover, good instincts and range. I think you could play him in a single high. So he's more versatile. I think you could put him in a single high scheme as a post safety, and he could do it. But he also fits the run game aggressively and sorts through the trash to get to ball carriers. So if you're a single high team that wants a guy that rotates into the box, both of them, I think, work for you. But I think Tieneman has a little more flexibility in where he can play. which is funny to use the word flexibility because I think one of his biggest weakness I have is that he is stiff hipped in man coverage. Like that's the thing that I don't think you want him doing is dropping down into the slot and playing man coverage. He's like your Madden high speed, lower agility player, I think. So yeah, I have a first round grade on him. Said he's a safety in a scheme that won't task him with playing too much man coverage. He can do it, but I don't think you want him to do it a ton.
Yeah, I started out with these guys as second round prospects for me, and I've graded them up to late first round guys. Also, the guy who sent me the Downs info that I shouted out just made fun of me for shouting him out on the show and did the little. I don't know if you know this, but the Lil Sass meme. There's a video where there's a jokey sketch video where a guy's watching the draft at home and he gets drafted and he's like, "Wait, me?" And he points at himself. And he sent me that. That's pretty good job by him. I won't reveal my source.
All right. So that gets us through your top four, Mark. We are missing my number 3 and 4. So let's go with my number 3. I believe he's number 8 on your board. Cornerback Jermod McCoy. So McCoy is a 3-star recruit at wide receiver who switched positions as a freshman at Oregon State and played 1 year there as a corner before transferring to Tennessee for the 2024 season. Unfortunately, he suffered an ACL injury in January, and he missed the entire 2025 season. So this is a raw prospect at the position who hasn't played football in a year. But he is 6'1", which is 69th percentile height, 188 pounds, which is 31st percentile. He's only 20 and a half years old, so really young. In 2024, he had an 11.8% missed tackle rate. He has played 977 snaps at cornerback in his career, 34 in the slot, 76 in the box. In 2024 at Tennessee, he had 4 interceptions and 9 passes defensed. If you look at his 2-year totals, he's got 6 total interceptions, 16 passes defense. So McCoy is a fluid mover, mirrors wide receivers with ease and coverage. He has quick feet, excellent balance. He's highly athletic, elite acceleration. I think he's got good recovery speed. He is comfortable in both press coverage and off coverage. He shows a lot of instincts in zone coverage, especially for a guy that committed as a wide receiver, which some of that probably comes into it. He can read routes well. He can undercut those routes because he sees what's coming. Good ball skills, physical at the catch point. He punches at the ball in contested catch situations, and he brings special teams ability too as a excellent return man. However, he is inconsistent locating the ball from a trail position. So like when he'll press and then sink on that inside hip and you're playing with your back to the ball, sometimes he struggles to turn and find the ball. And he struggled at times with bigger bodied receivers as well at the catch point. Again, gets grabby downfield. You're going to hear me say that about all but one cornerback. There's one cornerback that I specifically note is not grabby. And then the big thing is his ACL tear. It'll be about 15 months in his rearview mirror by draft night, but I think questions will still remain because there's going to be no tape post-injury. And so I didn't tag him with a medical red flag because ACLs are pretty standard things, it seems like these days, and he will be 15 months removed. By draft night, he'll be like 18, 19 months removed by the time training camp hits. And so I think he'll be fine off of that, but it's something that's worth mentioning. I gave him a first-round grade, and I said his best fit would be in a split-field zone defense that lets him play underneath coverage and then read and react to routes. So that is Jermod McCoy. What did I say? Number 3 on my board. He's number 8 on yours. Mark, anything you want to add?
I'm lower on McCoy, and it's pretty hypocritical after the down stuff to be like, oh, the injury stuff. There's definitely injury stuff that I am willing to be concerned about, though. And he tore the ACL last year, and he's still not ready to go. And it seems like there's some weirdness out there with his testing and stuff like that. So the fact that he was such a low recruit at a different position, he played at Oregon State, only played 1 year there at corner. and if you look at kind of the metrics on it, I don't think it was like a great year of film at Oregon State. And then he played at Tennessee, great year of film. There's no debating it. 2024 is an elite year of film. But I guess I have too many concerns of like 1 year of good film, coming off a torn ACL, still not doing well, and then also was not this like prominent recruit, did not have a track record or kind of pedigree before that moment at Tennessee. Now you could say like obviously Tennessee knew to pick him up through the transfer portal, so obviously he was good enough at Oregon State for them to see that he had potential and to bring him in as a starter. So maybe I'm wrong there too, but I also, the tape's really good in 2024. I don't think it's like so good that I have to just ignore the concerns with him outside of that year. So I could be wrong here, and this is a guy I could be underrating. This is just we talk sometimes about chances that I would let someone else take, and I think he's one of those guys.
All right, fair enough. Let's keep rolling to Avion Terrell, who is number 4 on my board. He's number 9 on your board. So cornerback out of Clemson. He is a 4-star recruit coming out of high school. He's the brother of AJ Terrell, who was a great corner for a couple of years for the Falcons. And then I don't think he's been bad, but he just hasn't been in the limelight as much lately. But Avion is 5'11", which is 31st percentile height, 186 pounds, which is 23rd percentile weight, 21 and a quarter years old-ish on draft night. In 2025, he had a 10.4% missed tackle rate, 17 defensive stops, 4.5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 9 passes defensed. He forced 5 fumbles. And then over the course of his career, he's played 1,392 snaps at outside cornerback, 164 snaps in the slot, and 134 snaps in the box. I think he excels in press coverage. Does a really good job of crowding receivers off the line of scrimmage, slowing down their release, and then he pretty seamlessly transitions into a trail position. So that's his bread and butter. He has a good sense for when to look back and find the ball in the air. You know, I talked about that being a struggle with McCoy. Terrell's great at that. In zone coverage, he hits his landmarks well. He has a good click and close downhill to drive on throws. He's good as a force defender in the run game. He's not scared to go stick his nose in the fan and be involved as a tackler.
What was that?
What?
Stick his nose in the fan?
Yeah. Have you not heard that?
I've never heard that one before. I like that.
I feel like I use that one frequently. Maybe not.
You definitely have go-to term. I like identifying the go-to terms. That's not what I've noticed before. Maybe you said it, and I've been looking up my own stuff to make sure over here. But that's a good one. I like that. Nose in the fan.
Yeah, stick his nose in the fan. Old draftism. What are my other go-tos, Mark?
You like click and close. You just said click and close. I have to hear them sometimes to recognize them again, but
we need a common term buzzer.
We both have them. Grabby's both obviously for both of us. That's like a bit on the show, but I'm sure we both have them. I'd have to. I don't know what mine are though. I never thought about that.
I haven't thought about it either.
That's funny.
Yeah. I'll have to think about it. Yeah, with corners, one of the things I specifically like note is their click and close ability from off coverage. So it doesn't surprise me. I say that one all the time. But yeah, not afraid to stick his nose in the fan. Much like my cat, who has done that multiple times and doesn't learn. But I digress. I also think he does a good job attacking the ball when it's in an opponent's hands, so leading to fumbles. Like I said, he forced 5 of them in 2025, 3 of them in 2024. So he's going to make plays on the ball for you. I do think he's undersized and he's wiry, 5'11", 186 pounds. He has quick release packages, can get across his face at times when he's pressing, and that's a bad place to be in as a press coverage corner. He can be overly aggressive at times, so you'll see him overrun some plays in the run game. And his tackling technique could use a little work. He makes too many arm tackles at times. Now, I gave him a first-round grade. However, I think this is one of those guys that I think his best projection to the NFL is in the slot. And he only played 164 snaps there in college. And so I'm always a little leery of that. With like outside corner to slot corner, it feels less like I'm saying a college coach doesn't know what he's doing, because like you're not pulling from an NFL talent pool, and so you're going to put your best corner outside, even if he's a little small. In the NFL, however, I just feel like his size translates well to the slot. His ability to come downhill in the run game translates really well to the slot. And so that's kind of where I see him fitting, and he just doesn't have a lot of reps there in college. Now, I don't think that's necessarily a super tough transition, especially for a guy that is pretty quick and a fluid mover, but it is something to watch for with him. So that's kind of how I saw Terrell. What were your thoughts, Mark?
I don't. We have a lot of guys that we have to get to here, and I want to talk about some honorable mention guys. So I don't want to talk too long about anybody. What you just said, that last like paragraph for the last like 30 seconds, pretty much why I have him lower. It's just like,
Okay.
he's a guy who I expect to be in the slot, who we don't have a lot of evidence or film on him playing in the slot, as opposed to guys who we have seen, who I think probably are going to be slot guys at the next level, who we have seen do that, or guys who I'm confident that could stick outside them. So Terrell's a weird prospect too. I feel like he's being a bit overvalued because of the bloodlines, and I'm actually usually a bloodline guy. We're gonna talk about a guy in a couple steps who I like, who's got athlete bloodlines, but I think because his brother's an NFL corner, and I went to the same college and all that stuff, I think people are kind of just naturally translating it. But I think he is different, like you said, and slot corner, and I think he's I think he's more of a second round guy, but I think he's going to go in the first round.
All right. Okay, so that is Avion Terrell. Mark, that brings us to your number 5. Number 8 on my board. Talk to me about Chris Johnson.
Chris Johnson, not the Tennessee Titans running back.
CJ2K.
Not CJ2K. CJ, I don't know. Cover. I don't know. I don't have a CJCB.
There you go. I like it.
You should go with CJCB. CJ SDSU. I thought that's a lot of letters at that point, but he did go to SDSU, San Diego State. Talking about more letters, 9.7 relative athletic score, a good RAS score there, obviously excellent. 6 foot 193, 30.5-inch arms, which not great arms, but great explosively testing, elite speed at 4.4, great close speed, and you can see that on film. No agility testing, and in a draft class with like we just kind of talked about, a ton of guys who may be slot corners or who already are slot corners. I think I'm almost positive this guy's going to stick on the outside. I think he's got the speed and the traits to be able to do it, and I think the film proves that out. He had the lowest passer rating when targeted of any of these prospects in the draft at 16.1. A 2-year starter for the Aztecs. He tallied 116 tackles, 5 picks, 2 pick sixes in there.
CJ pick 6. There we go.
CJ pick 6. I like that. 13 passes defense. CJ PD pass defense. 4 forced fumbles, also pretty good at that Pillman punch. I guess the same rate, 4 in 2 years, was it 8 or 9 in 4 years for EMW? So pretty close to the same rate in the last 2 years at corner for Chris Johnson, compared to just 1 touchdown surrendered in coverage in that time. He's definitely more of an arm tackler, slow you down guy than a big hitter, but he also has a really low missed tackle rate. So he's not a guy who's
5.6%.
Yeah, and I think it was actually like lower in past seasons. I think last year
it might have been
highest one, but this is a guy. This is a weird comp. I'm not comparing him to Quinyon Mitchell, but because he has hands and Quinyon doesn't, and Quinyon's better. So there's a lot of reasons I'm not comparing him to Quinyon Mitchell. But the one way I will compare him is when you turned on the Toledo tape with Quinyon Mitchell. You went, you know what? I don't care that this is a lower level. This is how it's supposed to look at that lower level. That's how I feel about Chris Johnson at San Diego State. It's like, and San Diego State's not as low a level as Toledo, but when you watch it, you're like, I don't care that this is the Mountain West. This is what it looks like. That's what it's supposed to look like. And that's how I feel about Chris Johnson.
Yeah. For Chris Johnson, I wrote the most, we talked about, the common things we say, like click and close. I wrote the most unique strength bullet point for Chris Johnson that I've ever written for a cornerback in my years of covering the draft. The number one strength that I listed, all caps, with an exclamation point at the end. Not grabby.
He doesn't have to be in the Mountain West.
Yeah. So, never happens. I always talk about how these guys are too grabby downfield, and he's just not. I will say, one of his weaknesses, I think, on like deep comebacks or outbreakers, he gives up separation on those. Once he'll do a good job of being up on you. He's got a smooth back pedal, transition to turn and run, but once he turns to run with you downfield, he has a harder time throttling back down and coming back on a break, which is a niche thing. You're not going to see that a ton, but it is something I noticed. His press technique needs some work. I think the timing and accuracy of like his punches and press is frequently kind of off. But I think he's a scheme versatile guy. If you want to be a man cover team, if you want to be a zone cover team, I think he's going to fit in either one of those. So yeah, I really like CJ Pick Six or CJCB, whatever we decide, CJ SDSU, whatever we want to call him. Fun player to watch and not grabby. So watch him go have 14 penalties his rookie season.
Yeah, he will have to adjust to a bigger step up in competition than other guys. But yeah, like people. Yeah, it's actually funny. I like doing Twitter searches of prospects when we're on the air here sometimes, just for what people are saying about these guys. And someone quote tweeted like a Quinyon thing, being like Chris Johnson, so. I guess I'm not alone there in that thought. But that is, when you turn on a guy who's playing at a lower level of competition, you don't want to see them just thriving. You want to see them dominating. And Chris Johnson, you look at the passer rating, the forced to completion rate, the ball production, and just the film. And like you said, not having to be grabby. I think all of that. He's my CB2 in this class.
All right. Well, let's keep rolling, Mark. Your number 6 is my number 7. Talk to me about Colton Hood.
I got my Tennessee shirt on here, and the better Tennessee corner, actually, in my opinion, Colton Hood. I'm just joking, but I do have him higher. Only 2 spots higher, but 9.64 relative athletic score, 5'11 and a half, 193, a little undersized, but elite explosion and elite speed testing. Former 4-star prospect related to former NBA player Rodney Hood. So for the NBA sickos out there, he had a nice career. Rodney Hood went to Duke. Good player. Transferred to Tennessee in 2025 after stops at Colorado and Auburn. He gave up just 1 touchdown in coverage over the past 2 seasons while tallying 3 picks, 10 pass breakups, and 26 stops. You want to know what a markism is? Tallied or tallying? Because I'm always looking for like ways to differentiate the way I write my stuff, and I feel like I use tallying so much that I'm not differentiating anything. I'm saying it all the time, so I need to be more mindful of that when I type up stats. Instead of I try to not just type like stat/stat/stat. I try to put like words in between it. But
yeah.
Anyway, inside baseball there for people. I'm actually, like I said, I'm a Hood over McCoy guy because I just think there's more tangible tape. Great mirroring skills, which is helped by his excellent speed. He played quarterback, running back, and wide receiver in high school. And he said that he's able to use those skills to know what those guys want to do. And I think you can see that on tape. Like, I think he does have pretty good instincts in terms of the way a receiver's going to break, the way when a quarterback's going to throw the ball, what kind of hole a running back's going to hit. He's a great press guy who can bump and run, really good at the catch point. Very physical for a cornerback and definitely has that kind of swagger. By the way, I didn't mention this. Avion Terrell definitely has that swagger as well in terms of that corner swagger that you want. And that can be used against Hood, and missed tackle rate has been a problem. And I don't have the numbers actually written down here, but it was his best in 2025. So he did improve.
Yeah, so he had 11 missed tackles in 2024, and then in 2025 he only had 4 missed tackles, and he played more than double the snaps. So yeah. It looks like he cleaned up his tackling a lot from 24 to 25. Sometimes that can be a one-off, but it's different coaching because, again, it's one of those disloyal guys, played at 3 different schools in 3 different years, so I'm totally out, but the tackling did get a lot better.
It definitely did, and you can see that on
Yeah.
film. And the one video I was watching, it was like I forget who it was. That lot I lot I've been kind of watching. I feel like I used to have no free ads. A couple people I went to for breakdowns, and then I would do supplement that with game tape and supplement that with other people breakdowns. I've been in the while I'm watching people break down stuff who I've never heard of before. And this guy that I never heard of before did a Colton Hood video, and he broke down that kind of that step he took in tackling, and I thought that he put together there's a terrible ad for this person. But you, an anonymous person out there who has a Colton Hood breakdown on YouTube did a good job kind of breaking down the improvement in tackling in 2025. And I look at it as a positive overall because he definitely loves playing run defense and he loves making a big tackle. And you can see that in the way he celebrates that, even bigger than like pass breakups. He said his mentality at corner is to play to make plays, not play to get beat, which you can definitely see and you definitely like. But that mindset can obviously also be dangerous, and it only get more dangerous at the NFL level, especially when you're 5'11" on the outside, which I do expect him to be. I expect him to play on the outside despite not being 6 foot, which is usually, I think, probably. What do you think the average height for an outside corner is?
I bet it's around 6 foot. I mean, so his 6 foot is 54th percentile. Obviously, that's going to get dragged down some by slots being included. Yeah. So I don't know, maybe like 6'1".
Yeah, I was gonna say like 6'1", 6'1.5" is probably average for outside corner. So he's definitely undersized to play on the outside. But I think the way he mirrors, the way he's able to play long ball, I think he can. I think he's going to be able to stick at outside corner despite the size stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think he's going to be fine at outside corner. A couple of negatives on him. I do think so. He likes to press, but he uses a two-handed jam that will get him burned if it doesn't land. And that's harder to land at the next level. J.C. Horn was another guy that did that. I remember coming out. J.C. Horn was really aggressive, like two-hand jamming at the line, and that's just harder to do at the NFL. A lot of times you've got to get a hand on because you're just not going to physically dominate a lot of NFL wide receivers. And the ones that are small enough you can are usually shifty enough to get across your face anyway. So that's something worth watching. Also, I think he opens up his hips too early when he's playing off coverage, but he excels in press coverage situations, and that's what I would want to keep him in largely. So if I'm a team looking to draft him, I would like to put him into a press man scheme or like make him a cover 2 zone corner where he can press bail or he can, press and drop into the flat, that sort of thing. So that's the way I would like to deploy Colton Hood. But I do think you're going to have to clean up that press technique a little bit. I think that'll come with time, though.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think there's just so much good on the tape that you ignore the undersized stuff. You ignore the stuff you have to clean up. And I think he can play relatively quickly. This is also a guy who's playing in the SEC, playing against some of the best receivers in the world, and going against pretty high competition. So even though I have him ranked a spot below Chris Johnson, he might be more ready to step in right away just because of the level of competition he was facing.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. Let's keep rolling. Mark, your number 7 is a guy that slipped through the cracks for me. I did not watch Devin Moore, so I'm going to have nothing to add here, no stats. But talk to me about Devin Moore. He's number 7 on your board. What did you see on his film?
He's a guy I've kind of fallen in love with in this draft process. And I'll be honest, I fell in love with him before I kind of knew about the injury history. He does have a quite extensive injury history, but I've decided I'm sticking with it because he was so good last year after overcoming a lot of that injury history. He started just 17 games in his 4 seasons. He has played like 26 to 27, which is, I think, kind of the more important number there. But he did miss games in 3 straight years, 2022, 2023, and 2024, due to injuries. But when you're talking about a class that's full of shorter guys and full of guys who are probably going to be slot guys, this is a 6'3" corner with 32-inch arms, and he had a year of film in the SEC that was quite excellent. at corner in 2025 on a Florida team that not a lot went right for in 2025. Devin Moore certainly did. He only allowed 17 catches for 2 touchdowns. He was only targeted 30 times in 11 games in close to 600 snaps. He had an elite coverage rating per PFF, elite run defense grading per PFF. This is a guy who I think people are not paying enough attention to. And this is a guy who's probably going to be a round 3 pick, probably going to be a day 3 pick. And there's a chance I should have him below my number 8 and number 9 guys. But I almost want to I'm almost making a statement a little bit with this guy because I really do think he's being disrespected and underrated in this draft class. When you look at also 5.3 missed tackle rate, not bad at all. There's a lot of the stuff out there in terms of his production at the highest level in the SEC that I think this guy's going to be ready to play if he's healthy. And I think the issue is if he's healthy, but he just had a full year of health in 2025 where he was excellent. So 16.7% forced incompletion rate in his last year. This is a guy who I definitely you should look into him. Maybe I'm missing something. He also something else that I like. He had 0 penalties in 2025. Not a single penalty in the SEC in 2025, which is I don't get it. I don't get why sometimes guys don't get viewed. And I think I shouldn't say I don't get it. It's clearly the injury history with this guy, and I think that's clearly what's happening where people are kind of just out on this guy because of the injury history. But really good deep ball tracker, really good. Really, obviously, the length it helps him to be good at the catch point and helps him in terms of passes defense. But yeah, this guy's an outside corner in a class that does not have a lot of them.
All right, I have nothing to add there. Like I said, I didn't watch more. Maybe I'll have to go back and do that if I get some time once I finish some of my other positions. So let's keep rolling. We have covered our 8s. Let's go to my number 9. He is not in your top 10. It's cornerback Brandon Cisse out of South Carolina. So he was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school. Spent 2 seasons at North Carolina State before he transferred to South Carolina for the 2025 season. He is 6 foot tall, 189 pounds. Had a 41-inch vertical that was 93rd percentile, 91st percentile broad jump. He will still be 20 years old on draft night, almost 21, but not quite. Last year at South Carolina, he had 27 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, an interception, and 5 passes defense to go along with a forced fumble. Cisse he's an explosive mover with a lot of speed. And he's got makeup speed when a receiver gets off the line and gets behind him. He's got quick, nimble feet, comfortable in man coverage. He likes to jam receivers off the line. He has said that his favorite coverage to play is cover 1. He likes to get up in guys' face, likes to mix it up in the run game. I guess you could say willing to stick his nose in the fan. He's got good click and close and off coverage. There's another one for you, Mark. I do think, though, his press could be more disruptive if he used his length better. He doesn't do the best job there. He does aggressively fit in the run game, but he often ends up out of position because he's got a desire to just attack. Doesn't do the best finding the ball when he's in a trail position. He's got, in 3 years, he's got 10 total passes defense. So not the best ball production, 2 interceptions. Doesn't recognize route concepts in zone with enough anticipation. And I think his transition from backpedal to turn and run is inefficient. It causes him to lose a step. So I put a 2nd round grade on him. I think he's going to be best in a man coverage scheme. And to me, he's kind of a toolsy developmental piece. Didn't mention this part. 641 snaps at cornerback, 214 snaps in the slot, 121 in the box. So he's played a little bit of everywhere, predominantly outside, and I kind of think that's where you're going to see him at the next level. So toolsy guy that you draft and develop is kind of where I have Brandon Cisse. Anything you want to add in on him?
Yeah, I he would be just outside of this for me. He's a high third-round prospect. I would probably have him 12 or 13 if we were to play this out. And it's just the lack of kind of ball production.
Yep.
And I don't think he's great at finding the ball, great route recognizer. So, but there was a quote on Lance Zierlein's scouting report for him that you're not drafting him for today's tape, you're drafting him for tomorrow's tools. So that's kind of the sell on Cesar.
That's a good line. That's going to become a draftism for me if I remember it.
That is what, yeah.
All right, let's go to our number 10s. We both have different number 10s, so I'll kick it over to you first, Mark. Talk to me about Bud Clark.
Bud Clark might be my number one guy in this class. I don't know. That might be going too far, but I love
the
Bud
number
Clark.
10 guy on your DB rankings is your number one guy in this class.
This guy might go in the 4th round, though. So
Okay.
I'm going to have him top 50. So
Okay.
he'll probably go 3rd round. I think he's like 85 or something like that on the PFF board.
You meant a my guy.
Yeah, he will absolutely. He will absolutely be a my guy. This was a guy who had insane, example, Lance Zierlein's, who, by the way, I like his scouting reports. They do kind of put things nicely together. Actually, my favorite part about it is the weaknesses. I like, because he'll be kind of brutal with people's weaknesses sometimes, but that's not the case in this case. His little write up on him starts out with, I don't have it right in front of me, but doesn't have crazy traits, not a special athlete, but a real football player. Something paraphrasing that is what his things, and a lot of scouting reports you'll look at about Bud Clark will say kind of that. Will be like, doesn't wow you with athleticism, but a real dog or a real competitor, kind of stuff like that. Well, guess what? The guy with insane production, who everybody calls a dog, and everybody can turn on the tape and see the impact, and everybody, the coach's favorite compliment, the football player, he's a heck of a ball player, whatever you want to say. Well, he just tore apart the combine after tearing apart the Senior Bowl, and it seems like people have not adjusted their opinion. He had an 8.9 relative athletic score. He's 6'1", 188, which is 80th percentile tall, but 20th percentile skinny. So he's definitely lanky, which I think is generally fine at safety. But 87.4 percentile vertical, 89.7 percentile broad. Ran a 4.41, which I don't think anybody expected, with 98% or 97th percentile at safety. Then you turn on the tape. This is where I scroll down and because I have my safeties and corners separated, and this is where I messed up earlier. You turn on the tape, and it's Kirby Joseph. This is Kirby Joseph right here. True ball hawk, 15 interceptions and 20 passes defense in his last 4 years with 2 pick sixes. Now, he's a 6-year senior, so he's a little older, but I'm looking at that as a positive because I think this guy's a plug-and-play safety, over 2,700 career snaps played. He's a 3-time team captain, a coverage safety, and a cornerback body. Definitely can cover in the slot, and they used him in that. Great awareness in zone coverage, reading the quarterback's eyes. Great run D grade in 2025. Elite coverage grades every year he played. He missed games to injury back in 2021 and 2022 due to the same ankle issue. And he did miss one game this year, which was an undisclosed injury. But he was back the next week in October and is obviously doing just fine now. Tested, tore apart the Senior Bowl, so no injury concerns. I think it's being a bit overblown. I think anything you look up about him mentions the injury stuff, and maybe he's a my guy, so I'm just feeling defensive about it. But it's really, he had injury issues 4 years ago, and then he missed the game last year for an undisclosed reason. He might have been suspended. We have no idea. I think they did list it as an injury. I guess that'd be a different issue, but he did have 7 penalties in 2025, but I think it was in part due to covering up the sins of the rest of a bad TCU defense. I feel like it was probably, being put in bad positions by corners if I had to go back and kind of diagnose them. But he obviously has a lighter frame. I don't think it's an issue on tape. And in honor of, I've brought this up now, the Adam Carter chart of the pod, and I saved it for last year, and I do have it pulled up, and there it is. Wrong. We have a weird layout going. There we go.
Yeah, it's up there now.
The only safety prospect since 2015 with a single season missed tackle rate below 15% an interception rate above 1.25%. And I wish the last one maybe you could get rid of to see how much more people we could get in here. But a career pressure rate above 33%. The list is pretty great. In terms of the players who have played in the league, Desmond King, Kevin Byard, Justin Simmons, Antoine Winfield, all studs, and Xavier Watts, who just had an incredible rookie year as a safety. And then you've got some studs in this class from the safety class, and Bud Clark and Dylan Tieneman. I love these charts when they work out this way, where it's only studs from the NFL and then a couple prospects from this year's draft class. And I do think that there's a chance that there's a couple safeties who step in right away and move into kind of big conversations at the safety position. I think that this class could be really special at that position. And did you do your top 10 fully yet, Shane?
My top 10. No, I've got one more.
You got one more? All right. I was going to use that to transfer to the Eagles thing, but I'll just kind of say
Go ahead.
I'll just say it here. Bud Clark is my dream on day 2 for the Eagles. I think, Downs, if he's there at 23, I think you ignore the O-line stuff and you take Caleb Downs, you ignore the injury, and you say, we're not getting a better player than this in this draft, and we're in a win now window. Let's push the chips in and go get Downs. Even if he's up, even if he escapes the top 15, go move up for him. I've seen some more buzz that the Eagles could be interested in Tieneman or EMW. I love them both, and I'm going to have them in my top 20. So picking them at 23 is great value. But I do think that the Eagles probably need to go O-line in that first round if they want to go O-line, because I don't like the depth on day 2. If you're relying on day 2 for a safety, let that safety be Bud Clark. I really do think he could slot right in and be an impact player for the Eagles.
Yeah, they should be interested in safety because they completely botched the safety position this offseason in free agency, in my opinion. But I know there's a lot of Eagles fans that disagree with me on that, and we're way too overly out on Reed Blankenship, who didn't have his best year, but I think a lot of it comes down to what you said with Bud Clark. I think Reed Blankenship was covering for a rookie safety that had no idea what he was doing for the first half of the season. That's one that we'll see how it plays out, but I really question the Eagles letting Reed walk away with no other plan. And maybe that plan is the draft, but they're walking into the draft with a obvious need, and that's something they don't do very often. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out.
TJ Edwards all over again.
Yep, absolutely. And Marcus Epps did a fine job filling in last year, but you do not want to enter a season with Marcus Epps and Andrew Makuba as your start and only safeties. Like, the Eagles legitimately they might have the worst safety room in the NFL right now. And so safety is a massive position of need. But anyways, I digress. Eagles fans, don't get mad at me again because I talked about Reed Blankenship. Let's go to my number 10. Safety Kamari Ramsey out of USC. 4-star recruit. He redshirted as a freshman at UCLA before starting in 2023. He transferred to USC in 2024 and had a big year. However, his 2025 season ended with a mid-November knee injury. So this is one of those guys that we're talking about availability as we head into the draft. He is 6 foot tall, which is 40th percentile for safety, 202 pounds, which is 31st percentile, ran a 4.47 40-yard dash, which is 78th percentile, 21 and a half years old. So, I mean, he did have the injury, right? But he goes and runs sub 4.45 or sub 4.5 at the combine, and so I think that tells you the ACL is in great shape. Had a 3.2% missed tackle rate in 2025, which was phenomenal. For his career, it was a 13% missed tackle rate. So dramatic improvement in 2025. Was that technique? Was it coaching? Was it luck? We'll see. Over the course of his career, he took 728 snaps at free safety, 556 snaps in the slot, and 364 snaps in the box. Ends his career with 2 sacks, 2 interceptions, 11 passes defensed, and 2 forced fumbles. I think Ramsey has great instincts in zone coverage. He is a high-level athlete who is comfortable rotating from split field coverages down into the nickel. He can drop into a robber role. Wherever he's at, he recognizes route concepts well. He locates the football and attacks. He has good, and I got to think of a different term now. You're in my head. He's got good downhill ability off the roof of the defense. Triggers downhill aggressively in the run game. I think he has the versatility to play several different roles for your defense. And so when you talk about like a Eagles fit, where, when you're playing a quarters based scheme or a quarter half based scheme, sometimes you're going to be responsible for a tight end in man coverage. Sometimes you're going to be responsible for a slot receiver in man coverage. Sometimes you're going to have to pick up a crosser. Sometimes you're going to have to drop into the flat. Sometimes you might end up matched on a running back because you dropped into the flat. A safety in a Fangio defense has to wear a lot of hats, and I think he's got the versatility to do a lot of those things. His upside as a nickel defender is going to be limited by lateral burst and agility. His back pedal's too upright. This isn't a guy you probably want to drop into the slot pre-snap and man match a defender very often. I also think he has questionable recovery speed once he's stacked vertically. Speedy receivers have the ability to take the top off the defense against him if they can get on top of him. So I gave him a second round grade. I think he is a versatile safety. I wouldn't want him playing single high a lot, but he can play split field. He can rotate into the box. I just don't love him as a slot defender. So that's Kamari Ramsey. I don't know why Ramsey. Kamari Ramsey. I don't know why I can't pronounce. In terms of draft prospects, that's a really easy last name, and I've botched it twice in the last 3 minutes. You're on mute, Mark.
I have to rewatch him because he's a guy who I kind of watched and I was like, okay, and I kind of moved on. I was like, I didn't get much of a take on him either way. I was like, he's fine, and I kind of moved on. So maybe I have to take another look. But I mean, we probably have missed guys who will go in the top 50 in this draft class, going through the top 10. Like just how deep this class is, and guys will get pushed up, and I'll throw a couple names out there that I'm not even covering here. Just names who we have not mentioned. Number 43 on PFF's board is D'Angelo Pons, undersized guy. Number 50 on their big board is Keith Abney, another problem. I think he's strict inside slot guy. 52 is safety AJ Halsey, who I've seen a lot of Eagles fans really pine for. I prefer Clark. Keontae Scott, weird player. Like a great blitzer, like a really impactful player for Miami last year, though, but really weird player. I don't know if he's a coverage guy, but
it's not often you see a cornerback with 13 tackles for loss and 5 sacks.
Yeah, he's also like 25, and he's a weird prospect. Really, really strange. Davison Igbinosun has all the length stuff from Ohio State, played at the top level. He is we talk about grabby. Grabby is an understatement. The guy just tackles people. I've never seen a guy like it. He's got some traits. He's got some tools. He just tackles receivers. Chandler Rivers, a guy who's been rising up the board. He's undersized. Dalen Everett, a guy who's been rising up the board from Georgia. Will Lee, a guy I really like. I'm not going to go too far into it. Takario Davis, he's rising. But the number one guy who I do want to just hit on is Treydon Stukes. Treydon Stukes is a guy who has been fast rising. I don't know what he is. Shane, look this up for me while I'm talking. Where did his snaps come from this year, Stukes, and how different were they all over the board? Because I've seen people list this guy as a corner. I've seen them list him as a safety. I've seen them list him as a nickel corner. Then you look at kind of the tape of him playing corner, and I think I don't know. He's an interesting prospect. I have a tweet I'm trying to pull up.
Treydon Stukes.
Yeah, from Arizona.
This year, 380 in the slot, 4 at corner, 197 in the box. Over the course of his career, though, 1,100 in the slot, 900 at corner, 461 in the box.
Yeah, so I'll share this one again. One more.
Over the course of his 6-year career, by the way.
Yeah, well, we just got to get used to that.
Yeah.
The another Adam Carter chart of the day, part 2 here, is the only quarterback prospect since 2018 with a RAS greater than 9.85 and a man coverage grade greater than 70 and the list is pretty insane. It's J.C. Horn, C.J. Henderson, who had injury issues. That's
So we don't have to talk about him.
Yeah, but I don't think that was as much of. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he was worse than I'm thinking, but I feel like that was an injury thing. Pat Surtain, Christian Gonzalez, Jamel Dean, Cooper DeJean, and now Treydon Stukes, who I've seen a lot of kind of late buzz for here as a guy who's probably going to end up going in the second round, I think. But I don't know what he is. If he's an outside corner, if he's a nickel corner, if he's a safety. I've seen him do all three on tape. I think he's good at all of them. I don't. He seems like maybe he's a master of or a jack of all trades, master of none situation. But I'm in on Stukes, and I'm worried I don't have him high enough, to be honest.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, you mentioned D'Angelo Pons and Keith Abney, both very small corners who never played in the slot in college. Yeah. Pons had 28 snaps in the slot compared to 1,900 at cornerback. Abney had 26 in the slot compared to 1,500 at cornerback. And it's like both of these guys, 5'9", 5'10". Pons has second percentile arm length. Like these guys have got to be slots in the next level, but they like never played there in college. So interesting evaluations there. We have run long like I knew we would, covering this many defensive backs. But real quickly, let's just briefly touch. We kind of touched on safety. Safety is a massive need for the Eagles. I feel like they've got to make a move there in the draft and probably make another move before in terms of signing somebody. You can't walk into the draft with two safeties on your roster, I wouldn't think. But at cornerback, the Eagles signed Tariq Woolen for 1 year. So going into this year, they don't have a starting spot open at corner, but Woolen is on a 1-year deal. Do you think the Eagles are looking at corner? Do you think they should be looking at corner? What are kind of your thoughts about the Eagles' needs at corner going into the draft?
I think it would be a day 3 value situation only. Like for me, day 3 guys to watch out for if they don't go before then. Devin Moore, obviously, I mentioned he's my number 7 guy. I think we'll see where he goes. But Will Lee, Takario Davis, both pretty long-armed guys. Jalen Kilgore's interesting. Might be a safety, might be a corner. Charles Demings, a RAS guy. But a small school guy. It's Stephen F. Austin. So, like I always say when we get to this segment, especially when talking about late round guys, Howie loves RAS. So Charles Demings would be a guy to watch out for there in terms of late round.
All right. Well, that is, by the way, I agree. Deep DB draft, I think they probably take a flyer on some guys like they like to do. They like day 3 corners to try to. The nice thing about like day 3 corners and safeties is those are positions that contribute on special teams immediately too, so it gives them a pathway to make the roster. So I think they'll look at that. I mean, if a guy they love falls, I wouldn't be shocked if they took like a guy they had a first-round grade on in the second or something like that, but I don't think it's going to be a huge priority for him. But
Julian Neal, too, another guy from Arkansas. I'll have to shout him out.
All right, well, there you go. That is our top 10 defensive backs and our thoughts on some Eagles fits. That concludes our defensive coverage of the draft for Chalk Talk. We've also previously done quarterbacks and tight ends, so we will be back next week to do running backs, and then we'll have receivers, and then we will wrap up our draft coverage, our pre-draft coverage, with offensive line. So that is going to do it for this one. Let us know what you guys think. Who are some defensive backs that you guys are looking at in the draft? Who are some of your my guys? We'd love to hear from you. We would also love it if you would give us a 5-star rating and review. Click that subscribe button on YouTube, on podcasting platforms. That really helps us out as well. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Shane Half NFL. He is at Mark Henry Jr. NFL. And we will catch you guys next time.